sometimes we are actually not quite prepared to resolve a conflict, and that can happen from the other side as well. So the other person might not be willing. When people are not really willing to resolve a conflict, there are certain behaviors that we can observe. Well, first of all, they refuse to listen, and then they might deny a problem exists, or they shift the blame to someone else or other circumstances. Then they might also deny any responsibility for the problem, or they just, you know, refuse to have any further contact with you and avoid discussing the issue and claim that the issue might be in the past and you know there's no need to discuss any further. Um, so we need to always be careful how we deal with other people's strong emotions. So it's not really appropriate to preach. It can also be tempting that when we make self discoveries, that we sort of start, sort of analyzing others and making claims about why they're acting like they're doing. So it's it's a tricky situation. So we really need to sort of think about how we manage someone else's anger or managing someone else's unwillingness to resolve the problem. And we need to do this with integrity and respect for ourselves and for the other person. So this is a really important point. So it's not only our own conflict situation. So we need to sort of be aware that the other person, also has a right and to respond in a certain way. And so we really need to focus on this conflict resolution then. And we need to understand also our own inner processes, our own feelings, and the issues that are involved. Um, so instead of kind of like saying, well, it's all the other person's fault, what we can do is maybe we look at how we come across and maybe what is the part that we have in this problem. And maybe we have misinterpreted something. And so we could sort of, be positive about it and discuss the advantages of a resolution. Um, and then there's also this part where we can't really look like we're trying to manipulate the situation or the other person. So we can sort of look at like, okay, what really is my own intention? And then we really need to clearly state to the other person that we want to resolve the conflict. And then obviously also sort of examine our part in the conflict rather than blaming the other person. Um, there are sort of like in a broad sense, there are kind of like 5 steps to manage uh, someone who's unwilling to resolve. So what we could do is, first of all, we discuss the benefits of resolving the conversation. Sorry, not the conversation, the situation. Um, so really, kind of like pointing out to the other person what the benefits would be, like there's a better relationship and there's not less stress, or uh, greater productivity and effectiveness if it's in a work a scenario, or lower costs, for example, in a work situation. So we could also consider that, is the person actually sort of backed into a corner? Is there something that can be done to help them save face, maybe? Um, where are the misinterpretations? What are the objectives, the motives, the points of view, values, feelings, maybe requirements or outcomes, needs and concerns? How can these be clarified? And then we can look at the relationship that we have with the other person. Um, could we sort of develop more trust, or is it, how do we go about this with solving the problem? Sometimes the conflict can be sort of brought down into smaller steps. So you can really sort of define the issue clearly and maybe explore um, more detail what the other person needs and what you need. And it's always important to identify the common ground, because then when you do this and clarify the outcome towards which you're both aiming, that's a really good strategy. And yeah, so basically, sort of you can also evaluate your part in the conflict. If, have I communicated my perspective, my needs, and my concerns clearly? Um, and then maybe there's also a little bit of an unwillingness in yourself to resolve this. So it's like these are really important aspects of managing unwillingness, whether it's our own or the other person's um, situation and feelings and needs. Um, so these are a few steps that you can sort of consider in this situation. I hope you found this helpful, and thank you for listening.